Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live stream where I answer your DNA test and genealogy questions. See a bunch of familiar people, familiar names. I was going to say familiar faces, but obviously I don't really see any faces other than mine. So I do see a lot of familiar faces, and I see some questions already, but we're going to go through the hellos first. So we've got Eric coming in again from Kansas City, Missouri. Well, hello, Weeping Scorpion, coming in from the Faroe Islands. Bill Allen asking a question about my haplogroup, which we're definitely going to be talking a lot about Y-DNA today. I took a quick look at what questions we'll probably be answering today, and it's going to be a lot of Y-DNA and a lot of other stuff too. Flo coming in from Oregon, hello. Retta also coming in from Kansas City, Missouri, in a suburb called Shawnee in Kansas. We've got Alexandra coming in from Germany. Hello, Alexandra. Karma. We've got Jojo coming in from Amsterdam and showing up in Twitch. So thank you very much for the help on Twitch. Definitely need the the interaction on Twitch. Matt from London again. Thank you for coming in. Tasha from Minnesota. Jojo, 10 seconds till liftoff. Oh, yeah. We've got Stig from Oslo. Texas Game Mom coming in. I think she's from Texas. Bavaria in the house. Yep, Texas. Hi from UP. What is UP? I'm not sure. Minnesota. Hopefully it's not something where when you tell me, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I not know? Upper Peninsula, Michigan. Oh, okay, yeah. Definitely would not have gotten that, but I know what you're talking about now. So, well, welcome to the stream. As I said already, we're going to be answering lots and lots of DNA questions. Not sure how long the stream is going to be today. I know a lot of streams end up going in for almost 2 hours or such, but going to try to keep the stream a little bit shorter today, maybe about an hour or so. And for those who aren't familiar with the way that we deal with this stuff, let me make sure I get this set up as I describe it, is I will be answering questions through Reddit, and I will try to answer questions that come in through the chat, but the only questions I guarantee that I'll answer through the chat are those that are the super stickers through, or super chats, whatever they're called, through YouTube. So get this looking good. So it's big and actually legible to everybody. They don't make it easy for you. All right, there we go. And we'll make me bigger a little bit too. Cool. So the way that I'm doing the questions for Reddit is I'm looking at the past year, the top questions for the past year. And then I've been going through and putting some upvotes for the ones that I definitely want to answer, which was easy on this because the top 3 were like, oh yeah. And then I was like, we'll just figure it out as we go along for the others. But for anyone who wants to have a question answered in this stream or future streams through Reddit, put it up there. If it's a question that people really like, upvote it. So if you see questions from other people that you really like, upvote it. And then every time I do streams, I'm going to focus on the top votes. So, hopefully we'll get through the large majority of questions. My original aim with the Reddit was to answer every question that came through, but I've slowly come to the realization that I don't think that's truly possible. And a lot of it's redundant because a lot of it's just kind of the same question in different ways about the admixture. So today we're just going to get into these, and there's definitely a lot of stuff that's not quite admixture related. But we're going to start with this one first. Infer my great-grandmother's ethnicity. Hi, everyone. Is it possible to infer my great-grandmother's ethnicity using my own DNA results? She was an adopted daughter, so I'm thinking that means that she was adopted, not her daughter was adopted. Thank you for your help. Oh, something's going on with my dogs. Put some dogs in the chat if you hear the barking in the background. So let's see what some people are saying. To a point, yes, if you know your father's side. Another way, if you can get him or a sister or brother to test, you can use both his and yours to eliminate shared matches between you two. People who just match you and not your dad would most likely match your mom's side of your DNA. gave some more information. So they were chatting through. So I think, all right, the first general answer to this is in terms of like if you just took a regular DNA test, which means a autosomal SNP DNA test, if I want to be really fancy. But that's basically your Ancestry DNA tests, your 23andMe's, MyHeritage, the Family Finder from Family Tree DNA. And those, while you will get results that you can possibly infer your great grandmother's ethnicity from, you can't just infer it just from your results. You do also have to use other information from your family history, from your DNA matches, from your just the context clues of your family, because basically, you're going to have 100% of your DNA represented, but a great grandparent's going to represent about, actually, you know what? Before I even say it, we're going to put the fun banner up that we always do. It's going to be about 12.5%. So we can see at the bottom of the screen, the banner I put up, that shows the expected percentage that you're going to get from each great ancestor, assuming that that's perfect recombination, meaning that every generation it halves. But we know that with recombination, it's random. It's not completely random, but largely random, which means that you can get all sorts of different types of chunks from different sides of the family. So for a great grandmother, out of your DNA, you're going to be only looking at about 12.5%, which could range. I mean, the range could be even bigger, but say about 10 to 15% of your DNA. So that means that more than 80% of your DNA is going to be your other parts of your family. So you need to figure out ways to rule that out. And that's how you can then possibly infer your great grandmother's ethnicity. The way you can do it with DNA matches is even better. For one, if you build your family tree, and then you can kind of figure out through your family tree of where your great grandmother, the context clues of where she's from. Because obviously, if she's adopted, that's going to be an issue. Because if you're not going to be able to build her family tree, that's a lot of information missing. But with these DNA tests, you can use the DNA matches to possibly identify your great grandmother's biological family. It's very difficult for great grandmothers. So if you can get your parents or even your grandparent from that side to test, that's going to help you in identifying that. But it's just a matter of being able to rule out the different parts of your ethnicity from the admixture. But my suggestion would be more focusing on the matches, actually figure out her biological parent's identity. Granted, if you can't do that, the admixture would be your next best thing. So I know a lot of people will say that in comments when I really go hard in on how much I don't like how people harp on the admixture. But I definitely get it that for some people, when you can't build your family tree, the admixture is kind of all you have to rely on. But then, even if that's all you have to rely on, for the most part, that doesn't mean it's the only thing you have to rely on, and try to focus on other stuff to build it out. So so they give my family as a mix. My family is divided into Germans, English, Italians, and Portuguese, but I don't know what my great grandmother's ethnicity is. The missing 12.5% in the account. My DNA results were the following. So basically, my family origin, my DNA test, do you think that my great grandmothers could be from Western Europe? Okay, so let's see. European, North and Western European, Italian, Iberian, some North African, probably related to my Portuguese side, very possible. They do have 1% Nigerian and 0.8% Native American. And then family tree DNA, they're getting largely European with 62% Western European, 37% Southern European. And what did they say? My family's mix. Okay, so I'm guessing they're saying. Wait, I'm not quite sure. This. So okay. So one great grandparent, or wait, no, one grandparent is German, one great grandparent is English, one grandparent is Italian, one grandparent is Portuguese, and then the missing great grandparent they don't know. So what is the rest? Okay, so now we've got some context to figure it out, actually. So obviously, with German and English, we're going to get a pretty big mix of stuff with the Western Europe. And so we kind of see that too. European, North and Western European, 53.7%. The Italian, 20.9%. And honestly, the Iberian that they're getting may represent some of their Italian ancestry too, but it could also be, other stuff. And then here it's kind of the same thing. So yeah, so that's, Western European certainly seems possible for the most part. With our Southern European, that 37%, that's representing the expected or part of the expected stuff. Well, so but this is the thing with getting into what I'm starting to do, is that there are so many possibilities. So I'm kind of cutting myself off, as I know I'm starting to kind of just get into it in a sense, but there's just so many possibilities. So basically what it's just a math problem at this point to kind of get an idea is what we can say. So we're not confirming anything. We're just getting an idea. So basically, okay, well, let's take out 25% of that Italian, 25% of that Portuguese. We know both of those are going to represent Southern European. So whenever we see Southern European, like here, we see that lumped together, that 37%. Well, then that means that we're probably also expecting that some of that Italian and Portuguese is also getting lumped up into the Western European. Then with the German and English, that's going to be a major part of this Western European, so that Ireland and then obviously Central Europe. But then basically what that leaves is a bigger chunk of Central Europe. And then these kind of small percentages, which, the Hungarian you can apply to the German, and then the Native American, I guess that would be more, we need to learn the family history, because we are getting Native American through both MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA, which, even though it's a small percentage, that certainly brings up some confidence having it on both tests at about the same amount. So yeah, let's see what else they say. Yeah. So they can definitely get from the information they have a general idea of their great grandmother's ethnicity, but it's really going to be identifying the parents or the great grandmother's parents to do that. So, all right. So we're going to do reviewed, and then I need to make sure, because this is something I started doing last time, was posting where people can actually find the answer. So, this was answered on this live stream. Of course. Boop. Let's close that and let's check on chat. Check on chat. All right. So let's see. I see the dog emojis in chat, so I know where to catch up. All right. Let's see. A lot of hellos, people talking about what's going on. Yeah, that's. Let's see. A lot of chatting going on. I'm not seeing any questions. I see Matt's in the chat answering a lot of stuff, so that's good. Hey Matt, everybody, give a emoji to Matt for being such a great mod admin. I never remember his exact title, but very helpful, very knowledgeable. So all right, so let's jump to the next question then. Oh, get messages. So the next question: can DNA tests help get past my 1650 wall? So I'm interested in tracing the history of my family name and finding the origin. Through FamilySearch.org, I've managed to trace my paternal line to a European immigrant in 1650 America, but I seem to be stuck finding any sources prior to his immigration. Would any DNA test help add any information to this person or his family? From what I've read so far, a Y-DNA test would show the haplogroup, but it looks like the haplogroup would likely show a general European ancestry. Is this the case? And funny enough, look who's the person that answered it, Matt. So how perfect, how perfect. Can actually, let's enlarge that so everyone can actually. Okay, there we go. That's much more legible. It's much more legible. Okay, so um, as Matt says, let's see, it could help. Like if someone has their line well researched where they came from, you might find that the family are of note in that country and have good records. But it's also possible they moved because things weren't great, and that far back, there's a lack of records in a lot of places. A big Y test will probably only help if you get someone with a close match. It's unusual to be able to take our tree back to the old world. I haven't even tried. That said, it might. All right. Yeah. If you do a big Y test, you could be lucky and get quite an accurate location that your ancestor came from. You might also get a surprise to find that the tree you've built doesn't match the DNA evidence. So, some pretty good answers from Matt and Cat of the First Men, but some things to definitely add on. But I'll just kind of start from the beginning, I guess, to say. So yes, Y-DNA can be helpful. The thing is that you do need to take a Y-DNA test where you're going to get Y-DNA matches. The main way to do that is through a family tree DNA test. You could do YSTR tests, which aren't as good as a big Y, but the more expensive the test is, basically the more markers they test, and the more markers they test, the more accurate in a sense you could say it is. I kind of hate using that word, but we'll just use it for simplification purposes here. Okay. So with the Y-DNA, when you get those matches, it's going to be dependent upon how good those matches are to be able to figure stuff out. Now, with 1650 being your brick wall, even if you don't necessarily get matches where you can find a connection, if you do have matches that have long tracing patrilineal lines, that even more, you see multiple matches having those same lines that kind of prove that connection, then if that's tracing further back than your family, so let's say you find some matches where it's really distant, it seems like there's you might be able to figure it out, but it's kind of hard to tell. There's no paper trail connection, and their line traces to the 1500s, and you can be somewhat certain of that, and yours is only tracing to 1650. Well, then by using their family tree, you can use that as context clues for things to possibly look for, because sometimes it's just a matter of not knowing where the records are. So you say you can't find anything on this ancestor, but it's not necessarily that the sources may not be there. It's just that you haven't found them. So using the Y-DNA can be a context clue for you. And especially, if you're looking at European immigrant to America and you're just not quite sure where, and then you do a Y-DNA test and you don't really get that many close matches for Y-DNA that's like, oh, well, it's genealogically relevant, but you get a bunch of matches where, okay, well, maybe they're related within the past 1,000 to 2,000 years, and all of them are coming from this area in Europe. Well, that's a big context clue that your patrilineal line probably traces to that area of Europe. And so you may want to start looking there to see, can you find any connection to your family? You do mention about the family name, which is basically kind of like a one name study sort of thing, which if you aren't familiar with that, look into the concept of one name studies, because that's something that could end up being quite helpful. It's something I've done with the Nunez Vaz family in identifying tons of different families around the world, and through Y-DNA, by finding these cousins in other areas and then having them Y-DNA test and then matching our side of the family, we now know definitively, okay, there is some connection. We don't know exactly where that connection is, but we know it's within this certain time period, and that makes sense with what we know about the family. So, there is a lot that you can get from it. It may not necessarily answer it right off the bat. The closer the better the matches you have, the more that you can get from it. But that's the thing with Y-DNA too, is that even if you don't necessarily get the best matches right off the bat, you may get better matches down the line, especially because more and more people will DNA test, and that's going to be the thing that's going to be helpful. But I do also want to mention that beyond family tree DNA, there are other places that you can do Y-DNA testing for matches, but it's a little bit roundabout way to get the full information. So with family tree DNA, you take those Y-DNA tests and they have it right there, your Y-DNA matches. And if you do the big Y, you can look at the big block tree, and there's all sorts of stuff you can get from it. But then if you do like a whole genome sequence test, so I usually talk about Nebula. That's the one that I've actually done a video on, and you can go check out that video. It's a couple of years old. I should note that in that video, I talk about how they mentioned a possible integration with family tree DNA that never came about. So, I know a lot of people were not happy about that. So, when you see that in the video, just know that they did not do the integration with family tree DNA, but they did do an integration with YFull, and YFull does have genetic matching for Y-DNA and mitochondrial DNA. So when you do whole genome sequencing, it's your whole entire genome. So when you connect that to YFull, you'll get both that Y-DNA and mitochondrial DNA. So even though your focus is this patrilineal line, doing the mitochondrial DNA, you'll probably want to look at that line at some point, I would imagine. So definitely something to check out. But Nebula is not the only whole genome sequence. I know there's, I think, Dante Labs, although I've heard a lot of bad things about Dante Labs. I've never personally taken it, so I don't know quite how, good it is, but I've heard some not so good things from people that I trust. So yeah, but there's a lot of others out there too. So I think that one's answered. And I know that there was in the beginning, before the stream even started, up here, Speedy McWeenie Mom, which what a great title. Hello, obviously I'm early, but I wanted to ask at some point if you could do a video about Y-DNA that explains to a novice how it benefits them to have a male ancestor from a specific line test. And so basically that's the whole thing. What I just went through is, if you have a specific line that you're trying to look into, and it's a patrilineal line where, you have male descendants from that line who will have, or what you'd expect to have the Y-DNA for that line, because there's always the chance of an NPE, a non-paternity event. And that's in the purest form of the idea of non-paternity event, literally the patrilineal line. And so, that's going to help you with those lines. So, for me, I have cousins from different lines that I've asked to Y-DNA test that are not my patrilineal line, but them doing a Y-DNA test then helps me understand that line better. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But let's check up on chat. See if I can find where it is. Let's see. YouTube live feed is delayed compared to Twitch. I think that they have different speeds, because I know I have both of them up so I can kind of click through and check in silent in the background, and it's definitely, I can tell there's a lag between one and the other. Let's see. Yeah, about 15 seconds for me. Maybe it's slow Wi-Fi, but I think it's the system. Maybe somebody knows. Okay. I will say I am liking all of this chatting on Twitch. If there's one place I need a lot of chatting, it's on Twitch. Okay. So let's see. Can we know the connection between ethnic groups by DNA testing? I think that's kind of where that's where your geneticists, or well, depending on what type of line of work they're in, but population geneticists, that's kind of what their whole thing is doing that sort of stuff. So like a lot of times you'll see plot maps and things of that nature, which are that's kind of the idea of what are these connections between these different ethnic groups and how can we plot them in accordance with each other. So that gets into the kind of stuff that you'll see in like white papers too. Because that's kind of part of how they try to figure things out is, when they're looking at different population groups and trying to define a specific population group, they also have to keep in mind, well, how is that population group going to be defined, and how is that going to relate to other population groups? Because within different population groups, there may be different ethnicities or culture. Well, ethnicity is kind of I guess, weird term to use in this sense, but like, different cultures in a sense, and different people that, at different points may have seemed, been very separate in culture, but in population flow may have a lot of connections with other cultures. Which, obviously you'll probably see a lot of similarities between cultures like that, which is probably why you see throughout Europe, certain areas kind of have a similarity to them. But yeah. All right. Let's see what, let's see. Oh, we have Callum in the chat. Welcome to the chat, Callum. Very common user on here. Let's see. Mom Fafelsky, another common person in the Genie Vlogger chats. Is there a DNA testing company more used by Eastern Europeans? I want to connect to those cousins. And that is a very definitive answer of MyHeritage. By far, they have for the longest time had different distribution centers throughout Europe, which have allowed for more non-English speaking country users to test. So that's kind of the best way I like to define it, because there are a lot of people in Ancestry and 23andMe and Family Tree DNA who are from the English speaking world. So, America, which includes the US and Canada, South Africa, England, Ireland, Scotland, Australia, New Zealand, those being the main ones. And that's kind of the big representation. And then you do get a good amount of other European representation on those sites, but not so much Eastern European. But when you go to MyHeritage, they have a huge contingency of Eastern European, and they also have a huge contingency of people from South America. So both of those places, if you're looking to get the most DNA matches of people still in those areas. So, for me, I have seen a ton of matches who live in different areas of Eastern Europe. Ukraine is a big one that I see a lot of people testing in. And I know, a lot of the Ukrainian genealogists that I work with do a ton of stuff with MyHeritage. And in fact, Sergei Fazulyanov is a genealogist in Vinnytsia Oblast in Ukraine. And he has done a lot of stuff with MyHeritage. He's constantly getting people to test. And if, I only understand half the posts he puts up because they're all in Ukrainian and there, but he does so much posting about, getting people to test and doing all this stuff. And that seems to be the main one that all of my Ukrainian genealogist friends go to, is MyHeritage. So that's a very definitive MyHeritage. But I will say, at that same token, MyHeritage allows uploads. So in a sense, for the best bang for your buck, what a lot of genealogists suggest is to test through Ancestry and then upload it to MyHeritage. But there are technically some benefits by testing through MyHeritage, because with MyHeritage, there's certain SNPs that only they test, certain DNA markers they only test. And so when you test through them, they're going to test those markers, and that's going to give them a better ability to find your genetic matches. So, that's the way I'd put that there. Hopefully that's helpful. So, Matt, I'm trying. You're doing an amazing job. So let's see. Okay. Do you think MyHeritage DNA will ever get updated? Also, stupid how MyHeritage has no white paper. I hope they get updated, but more than anything, I hope they release a white paper. I'm not quite sure why. I can't remember if I've ever asked this in person to the people that work at MyHeritage, because I'm friendly with them every time I go to different conferences and stuff. I'm always talking to them. And I interviewed Daniel Horowitz, the chief genealogist of MyHeritage, on the channel before. So they're very familiar with my channel. They've sponsored videos. They're probably going to be sponsoring more videos in the future, hopefully. So yeah, I need to ask them about the white paper, because that's the one thing I always harp on is, they have the number one test or that's a weird way to put it. No, their test is the one that I hear more people complaining about the admixture than any other test. And yet they don't have a white paper for us to see the precision and recall numbers. So, they're also the ones that I think they try to make the most nuanced breakdown of Jewish ancestry and other ancestries that a lot of other companies don't have the confidence enough to create as a population group to define. And with no white paper, there's a very big question mark of, well, how reliable are those? So, but the thing for me is, even though the admixture on MyHeritage may not be the greatest out of all the tests, a lot of their tools have been the greatest, which is one of the reasons why, if you watch my best DNA test video, they were ranked number one. Okay, let's see. I've done a big wide test to find out who my paternal grandfather was. No luck so far. If you're looking for your grandfather, I would highly suggest taking a regular autosomal DNA test. So Ancestry DNA, a family finder test through Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage, 23andMe, Living DNA, all of those are known as autosomal SNP DNA tests. And those are going to be one of the best things you can do for finding your paternal grandparent. If you're lucky enough to have multiple siblings that are willing to also DNA test, you can do what's known as visual phasing, which is an amazing tool that allows you to take your DNA and compare it to your siblings, and then figure out which part of each of your DNA, which grandparent is coming from. So let me actually see if I can pull up an example, because this is something I always love to talk about. And this is something I'm really hoping to do for a YouTuber family tree series episode. So we're actually in the works with a YouTuber as we speak to get this done. We're having them and their siblings test as well as their parents. And so, yeah, I need to find where this stuff is. Let's see, it must be in here. There we go. So here we go. So what is it doing? Okay, for some reason it is not letting me show this. That's unfortunate. Okay. We're gonna go a roundabout way to show this. We're gonna go a roundabout way to show this. Because basically when I did this work, I did this through Canva. So we're gonna look at it through Canva. I just need to make sure I don't have any private information on the screen, because do not want to give away any private information. So, okay. Okay, so this is, I need to edit this to make it so you all can actually see it. All right, there we go. Actually, we'll need to take, that would have made more sense. Just take that off screen. All right, let's make that bigger then. Let's do this. All right, so while I'm getting this, trying to make this bigger so it's easier to read. So this is what visual phasing looks like. And with visual phasing, what we're doing is we're taking multiple relatives, and the ideal is 3 siblings, but you can do it with, if you don't have siblings to do that with, you can use other relatives. So in my case, this is using myself, my sister, my paternal aunts, and my maternal grandmother. And so by doing that, I am then able to break down, using the recombination points, how I am inheriting my chromosome DNA as well as my sister's. So on this chromosome, in this spot right here, I'm getting that DNA isn't being inherited from my grandma Lel. And then right here, it's being inherited from my grandpa Simon. And then, so one side's my paternal, we can see. So those are my paternal grandparents. And then these are my maternal grandparents. And I'm just realizing that I did not spell grandpa right there. But by doing this, we can then take our DNA matches and look at their chromosomes. And let's say, like, you're looking for your, what was it? Let's see if I can find that. Of course, I clicked off. your paternal grandfather, well, okay, well, we've got our paternal, and once you break things down, you won't know the name of your grandparents, but you can still label it, grandparent one, grandparent two. And then through the cousins, through your paternal grandmother, you can then rule out which one is grandma, or you can figure out which one is your paternal grandmother, and then obviously the other one has to be your paternal grandfather. So then every match that you find that's matching along that part, for a fact is related through your paternal grandfather. And now you've got a very specific set of genetic matches to use to figure out how you're related, because before doing that, you've got all of these cousins and you have to then rule out each one by, okay, well, I know that they match here, or, I know that they were connected on the paper trail here, so I can rule them out. But, for all the matches that you don't know how they're connected on the paper trail, it's difficult to do that. So visual phasing is a way to overcome that difficulty. So, all right, let's go through some more chat. I've got so many chats here. Oh my gosh, John Howard, Iron Man Gringo here. You are the best DNA and Fortnite expert ever. So I was hardcore into Fortnite for years. I haven't played in a while, but starting in the beginning. And this is one of my squad mates, one of the people I used to squad up with all the time. And we met through a random place. That's so funny to see you here. Thanks for jumping in, John. Hope you and your family, your daughter, are doing well. So, all right, let's go through some more. Let's see. By the way, last Reddit stream, it was only one of my questions you answered. The other post was a question posted by another user, which I had commented on. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, I remember. I was like, wow, this person's getting so many questions answered. Let's see. Do illustrative DNA worth to try? That's a site that I've never really used. I'll have to look into it, but I know a lot of sites, if I see that there's no genealogical benefit to it, I usually kind of don't worry about it. Let's see. Gosh, so many. Chat is going hard today. How many people do we have? I mean, we've got kind of the general amount of 50 people watching. Let's see. All right. So much. We got Charlie in the chat now. We've got the other mods. So Charlie and Matt are two wonderful mods. And then we've got is our other mod here? We just had a new mod on the Discord jump in. So let's close out of that visual phasing stuff. All right. So I think we've answered this one. Oh, wait. Yeah, I did. Did I not tag it? I did. It just isn't showing up. All right. So let's jump to the next question. All right. So, I just saw Alexandra did a super chat. So I'll go ahead and answer that. Can I do phasing with my parents and my sister? So unfortunately with your parents, they do not help in phasing, because when you look at your parents' DNA, it's going to show you match across the entire chromosome. And it's going to show that you're a half region match across the entire chromosome. So you're not going to be able to figure out which side which is your paternal mom and or which is your paternal grandfather and paternal grandmother. You're only going to be able to tell, oh, well, it's my father's side. But what you can do is you can use your sister, and then you'll want to use one possibly close relative on your paternal side and another possibly close relative on your maternal side. So, the closer the relative, the better. So if you can get like an aunt or uncle or something like that, that can be helpful. But basically what you're doing, visual phasing, you're using recombination points within your DNA to then figure out where you must be, when you have a recombination point, one side's coming from one side and the other side's coming from another side of the family. So with visual phasing, by breaking that down and then comparing it to the different relatives, that's how you kind of figure out which is coming from which. It's really hard to describe visual phasing in a very quick way. It's kind of a very in-depth, long process sort of tutorial, which I think Family History Fanatics, Andy Lee, has done some pretty good tutorials on visual phasing. And I think he even did a visual phasing video of how to do visual phasing without just siblings. So that might be able to help. But, with your sister, that's going to be a big help because that's going to help you identify recombination points. But then for going further and then getting, with two siblings, that's where you can kind of identify almost all the recombination points because between how you match both the siblings and then how both the siblings match each other, you're able to figure out a lot of recombination points between each other. And then you can figure things out just by your distant matches on which chromosomes or which part of the chromosome lines up which grandparent. But yeah, definitely. I would suggest looking up some tutorials on how to do it because you may be able to figure it out. And for me, I really figured it out by taking the Blaine Bettinger course through GRIP, which is like a week-long course. And, he had like a whole like lesson plan, which went into it in depth. And it was, Blaine Bettinger's like the guy when it comes to genetic genealogy. So yeah, hopefully that helped answer that question. Okay. Now to this. 49,000 relatives on Ancestry on Ashkenazi Jewish side. I am donor conceived. I was born in 1982. I did a DNA test and found out my sperm donor father is deceased. My father's side is Ashkenazi Jewish and has 49,000 relatives on Ancestry.com. My mother's side has only 1,500 relatives. Is this endogamy or do I have a lot of sperm donor siblings? I'm guessing they saw that Netflix special. My half-sister found 20 half-siblings, and my paternal aunt reports 30, but who knows? One of my half-sisters was born in 1990, and it's unclear how many times he donated sperm. Okay, well, in a sense, you have part of your answer there. So the simplest answer is yes, it's mostly endogamy, but with your father being a sperm donor and having a lot of children fathered through those sperm donations, you're obviously going to have a big bump through there. But as you can see, 20, 30, I mean, not to make any light of that because those are big numbers. So I guess I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions. Maybe you didn't see that Netflix special. But this is one of those things where that increase of half siblings will definitely bring it up, but it's only going to bring it up by however many half siblings you have. And you can kind of see the difference between your paternal side and maternal side is not really going to be, that difference isn't made up by the gap of half siblings. It's really just because of the endogamy. So it's kind of both in a sense, but mostly it's like 99% endogamy, 1% sperm donor siblings, I'd say. Yeah, so I hopefully that answers that. Let me see what chat's saying if anyone says anything. We do have the Discord invite. If anyone wants to jump into the Discord, we've got a very lively Discord, lots and lots of people helping each other out, answering stuff, chatting away. And of course, if the event trooper's in there, he's going to be posting photos of all sorts of people. So, that sounded even worse than it really is. He just likes to post a lot of photos to be like, look at the comparison of these people to these people, and here's me and my family. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it helped me. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Okay, so let's reviewed. So that bas. And let me make sure I get some water. I need to hydrate. One of the things I very much screw up on all the time is I forget to hydrate while I'm actually doing these streams. So, yeah. Okay. So, Continuing on. Is it possible to be Jewish but not have Jewish ancestry according to 23andMe? So my dad recently took a 23andMe DNA test and got 89.8% Eastern European and 9.2% Finnish, but 0% Ashkenazi Jewish, which was quite a surprise to me. His father, my grandfather, was supposedly 100% Jewish, and I was able to trace several of his ancestors with very obviously Jewish first and last names. Plus, it was just a known fact since they were practicing Jews. Is it possible to be Jewish, but for it to not show in DNA ancestry results? Or does this mean that my grandfather might not be my actual grandfather? Thanks in advance for your help. Okay, let's see what this says. Technically, Eastern European and Ashkenazi Jewish are separate categories, but personally, I think they're close enough for them to get mixed up. From what I've seen, not that much. I would not say that's really the case. Depending on how comfortable you are uploading your DNA to other sites, you could see what ethnicity analysis they give. 23andMe shows haplogroups. Has your dad told you what these are? Yeah, it was the paternal grandfather, I think they said, wasn't it? Yeah, my father, my grandfather. Yeah, okay. The chance of your grandfather not being your actual grandfather just because of broad ancestry is very, very low. Do not jump to a conclusion like that so quickly. There is a long list of possible explanations. That is true, but I'm going to kind of counter that point just a little bit, just a tad bit. And then, okay, that's not OP. So I'm not sure how you get the idea that Ashkenazi and Eastern European are close. I would agree with that statement. They are separate categories for a very good reason. Ashkenazi ethnogenesis happened long before we got to Eastern Europe. Because of endogamy and multiple bottleneck effects, we cluster closer to other Jews than to European populations we lived amongst. Ashkenazi DNA is some of the most studied and absolutely not going to be confused for Eastern European. Very true. Basically, the only way that Eastern European is going to get confused is if you do have the rare case. Well, I don't know how rare necessarily, because a lot of the records are just coming to light in Eastern Europe for a lot of this stuff, but it seems that there wasn't a large amount of mixing between the local Eastern Europeans and the Jewish population, especially because of how the Jewish population was viewed. So it is very, very distinguishable between the Ashkenazi Jews and their European neighbors. Not to say that there wasn't any mixing, but the mixing was so minimal that it's not like it's a commonality thing. This is actually something that lately I've been getting a lot of in terms of Jewish DNA stuff. With everything going on, is all these people coming up and going, how can Jews claim DNA? They're just Europeans, and the Khazar theory and all this stuff that's been debunked through science. And I even had a comment the other day of, I have a question, and then they didn't have a question. They just said Jewish is not a DNA. It's not an ethnicity. It's a religion, and this and that. And so that kind of gets to the heart of the answer of the main part of this question. And the thing is that Jewish is an ethno-religion. And what that means is that it is a ethnic people that can be very well defined that are also tied to a religion. But what that does not mean is that if someone converts to Judaism, that they're all of a sudden going to have Jewish DNA. And that also doesn't mean that if someone is Jewish and then converts to something else, that now they're not going to have Jewish DNA. What it is just that for Jews, they can be defined very distinctly through autosomal SNP markers, and using that information, we can figure these things out. But even more through Y-DNA testing and mitochondrial DNA testing, that's how we know about this bottlenecking. That's how we can confirm the Levant ancestry of Jews, and how we can figure out the different migration paths of all the different Jews, because, between Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi, there are a lot of different paths they took, but we can tell when there was the connections between them, and most especially the Avatenu or not even just the Y-DNA project, but the Avatenu Genetic World Census Project, led by Adam Brown and Michael Waz, both of whom are very good friends of the channel. They were two of the people that were in the recent video reacting to that Renegade Cut video, and they're doing some of the most in-depth work with Jewish genetics through autosomal, Y-DNA, and mitochondria, largely focusing on Y-DNA. So to answer this question, the main thing to say here is that there's a few possibilities going on. For one, it could be that your grandfather may have come from a family that were a convert family. So, it's possible maybe the grandfather was a conversion, and just because of that, even though they were Jewish and maybe he grew up Jewish, and even if it was a couple of generations, although it's not quite as likely, I guess, because usually if they are Jewish and they convert properly, they will probably marry other people who are Jewish, and they'll likely be ethnically Jewish. But the other thing that's possibly going on is the NPE, the non-paternity event. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that your grandfather wasn't your grandfather, but it may be that your grandfather was not truly the son of his parents. And even though he was raised in a Jewish household, it may be that they were not his biological family and he was somehow adopted by them or something like that. So there's a few ways to go about this in terms of figuring it out. And I guess I should also mention there are some other possibilities, but we're not going to go through every single possibility. But the way to figure this out, number one, is to see if you can confirm or disprove your family tree. So you've DNA tested. So take a look and see, your dad DNA tested, even better. So if your dad DNA tested, then take a look and see what are his DNA matches in terms of confirming his family tree. So looking at his father, did his father have any siblings and any cousins, and see how are those cousins matching? Are they actually matching for one? And if they are matching, what are their results? Then see if you can get even further. So if you can confirm that, your father's father is truly your father's father, then if you know the family of your father's grandfather, your great grandfather, which you say that you have several ancestors traced, so you may have some of that information, then see, are you getting any of their matches? Now, let's say that you don't see any of these matches confirming any of that. Well, the next thing you need to do is figure out, did any of these other descendants test? So if you are in touch with cousins from your grandfather's side, your paternal grandfather's side, then contact them and see, have you DNA tested? If not, are you willing to? Because they may just not have DNA tested, and then you have them test and see if they match up. Then if they don't match up and you know that they've tested, then you know for a fact that there is an NPE going on. But then if they do match, then you want to look at their ethnicity admixture as well and see, well, what are they getting? Are they getting any Jewish or anything like that? Because you are saying, this is your father's father. So presumably that would be 50% of him. So there is the possibility that maybe, he wasn't fully Jewish. He was only partly Jewish. And then it just ended up being that your father didn't inherit any of the Jewish DNA. But that's probably not quite as likely, because that would mean that the Jewish was really far back. But there's just so many possibilities. But the thing that you need to do from here is get more tests done, DNA test more cousins, see what you can confirm from your family tree. So hopefully that's helpful. Like I said, it's always possible that someone was a practicing Jew, but did not come from an ethnically Jewish ancestry. So yeah, the whole ethno-religion thing is one of those things that I don't know why it's such a confusing concept for so many people, but it just is. So, all right, let's review this and then check chat. So, boom, and check chat. Okay. Let's see. I do see that see Matthew Pitt sent a super chat, so we will definitely get to that. But I just want to scroll through some stuff to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, I think I saw that before, so we'll just go down from here. Okay. Ads are so rude. I need to look into this. I must have some setting on that it does that. So I'll look into that if anyone knows anything. Okay. All right. So we'll get to this. I just found out yesterday that you share the same amount of DNA with a third great grandparent as you do a second cousin. How wild this is on average. I'm not quite sure if this is a question or if you're just saying it and you just want everyone to see it. So let's actually jump to the shared centimorgan project, one of our favorite tools. And so, yeah, so we're looking at third great grandparent, which is right up here, would share the same amount on average with a second great, with a second cousin. So, yes, I mean, basically what you're doing is, having each generation you go down. So, in the same sense, so it's like, okay, grandparent. So you go half, 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 half. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. So then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's kind of, yeah. So, okay, it is a statement. It's a statement. I just wanted to make sure because you are doing a super chat. So I don't want you to be posting a question and maybe like, what? So I thought it might be a statement, but yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things that you can kind of figure out too in terms of this kind of stuff is when you go a certain amount of steps, and that's the way to do it. Like I think a lot of people may get confused because they might go, well, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, but no, it's like a up, over, and down. So if we want to go to third cousin, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then so basically what you notice is basically each step it about halves. Now the beauty of the shared centimorgan project is that it allows you to see with the specific relations what we see on average. So, looking at this third cousin once removed, that's how many steps? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 steps, and this is what we're looking at here. But then let's go a different 8 steps this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's slightly different, but somewhat similar. I think I did that right. So it's when you're going about the same amount of steps, it's going to be somewhat similar. So let's see, what was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It was 9. Okay, yeah. So that makes more sense. So 9 there, and then 9 here, and it's fairly similar. Yeah, it's pretty much. Oh wait, no, I'm just looking at third cousin once removed in different spots. Woo. But it's basically, that's basically what you're dealing with. Is just, yeah. Now, something that's very interesting. Let's see. SegCM is this site, SegCM, and I think I talked about this on the last stream too. So basically, this is a tool created by a guy named Britt Nicholson. Really cool guy. Hung out with him at Roots Tech last year. And he's basically developed this using the concept of the way recombination works. Even though recombination is random, what they've found through different studies is that when you have recombination, there seems to be a higher rate of recombination when it happens in females versus males. And so using that information and using what they've figured out through specifically looking at different relationships, not just of how distant it is, but what's the, is it through your maternal line, your paternal line? Is it through, is it your maternal, paternal grandfather or great grandfather? Is it your maternal great grandfather, whatever. So it allows you to do much more. So, as an example, let's say that we have a match that's, 202 centimorgans across 8. Well, let's go with 14 segments. We can see what the difference is. So here we have 14 segments and we can see, okay, it's saying second cousin, and that's kind of our main thing. So nothing really here that's going to tell us very specific what side of the family it is. But then let's do 8, and it's pretty much kind of the same, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, none of it specifies that. So let's up it to 302 across 14. Across 8. Oh, we're not getting it. So maybe it has to be higher, because I've played with this tool a good bit, and it's been very helpful. So okay, so here we go. Here's an example of a breakdown. So we can see that it breaks it down in some places where it says, okay, now it could be a great grandparent or great grandchild relation, but if it is, it would have to be a paternal relation based on the information they have. And then same thing here. So basically they're saying that very, very, very small chance that that's the possibility, that it is, a half aunt or uncle or a half niece or nephew. But if it is, it's got to be paternal. Now up here, obviously it's not kind of deciphering any specific one, but let's say it's 807 across 14. So, okay, here we have a better example. So if you've got a match, 807 centimorgans across 14 segments, we can see the breakdown of, okay, could be a great grandparent or a great grandchild relationship. But then it breaks down this way of, okay, well, most likely it's paternal, but also likely it could be paternal-maternal or maternal-paternal, or it could be maternal-maternal, but that's the least likely option. But then, each option here, we get all of that. So, first cousin, a paternal match. So basically meaning, your father and their father. I think, yeah. And then paternal-maternal, that would mean that your father, their mother, or your mother, their father, because basically with the recombination rate, if it's coming from your mother but their father, well, your mother's recombination rate means that the DNA you inherited from your mom, the shared DNA that you're going to have with them, well, yours recombined more and theirs didn't recombine as much. So the rate is going to be kind of half of what it would have been if it was paternal. And then not exactly half, but a bit less than what it might have been paternal, but a bit more than it. Both of it was through maternal. So that's the concept of it. But this is a very useful tool, and I'm going to post the link to this in chat for everybody. Which now that I do see all the dog emotes for my dogs. Which, by the way, every time my dogs bark, if everyone doesn't know yet, every time my dogs bark, throw some dog emojis in the chat. That's what that's about. Has your dog done a DNA test? Yes, my dogs did a DNA test. So I have 2 of them, and I did it through Wisdom and Embark, and I did a whole video all about it. Embark DNA test, Genie Vlogger. So this video right here. So from 3 years ago. So those are my 2 dogs. That's Pete and that's Jack. And then sure, chat. Do you have any cats? I do not have any cats. I'm allergic to cats. So never exactly been the biggest fan of cats, I guess you could say. Yeah, no, I do not have cats. My roommate has always talked about the fact that, like, yeah, if you weren't allergic, I probably would have gotten a cat. Cause he's like, easier. He's like, it's easier than getting a dog, I think. Yeah. Apathetic roommate, to quote Zoltan Cassis. Okay. Back to the questions. Where are we at? Oh, wow. Yeah, we're just about to get to an hour on stream. Which I think, yeah, we'll answer one more question and then we'll call it for today. I do see. Let's see. Matt Baker of Useful Charts fame did DNA test on his cat's fascinating video. Yeah, there are cat DNA tests. He did do that. He's done a lot of DNA test videos. So, and I've been a part of many of them in different ways where I've done reactions to a lot of them. So my favorite collaboration with him doing DNA tests was the one for Jabari Walker, where we then had me use the DNA test to trace his family ancestry, which I should say, for everybody wondering about the YouTuber Family Tree series in terms of, am I going to do more episodes on these guests that I've only done one episode on so far? And the answer is yes. I have lots of episodes already in the works for many of them. In fact, for the episodes I've done on Cynical Historian, I've already recorded multiple collaborations for different episodes. One which is a Mr. Beat collaboration, another one which is a Daniel Loftus collaboration. So for those familiar with Daniel Loftus from Twitter, he did some work for me on one of the episodes, and that has yet to be released. So lots of stuff in the works. And yeah. Okay, so let's look at this one. How far back is my Indian heritage? Interesting. All right. Hi, I recently got my results from Ancestry DNA and was a little surprised to find some Indian in there. On my dad's side of the family, there's a long history of being based over there, 4 generations, I believe. I'm just curious when this may have happened. 5%, I'm guessing great-great-grandparent, possibly one more. Is my thinking correct? If so, I will have to look back on the family tree as it does go quite far back and no refers to Indian heritage. So guessing some of the family on there are not my relatives. Thanks in advance for any help. All right. So did anyone answer this? Someone posted a video. Not sure if it's mine. Let's see, is it mine? Is it my video? Family video. You can't be posting family history fanatic videos when I talk about this kind of stuff on my own videos. Just kidding. Okay, so we've got this ethnicity breakdown. They've tested on Ancestry. 48% England, Northwestern Europe, 25% Ireland, 13% Scotland, 8% Sweden and Denmark. And then we've got this 4% Northern India, 1% Southern India, and then a 1% Germanic Europe. And then we see that they come from Southern Ontario settlers with, DNA communities being fairly confident, in my experience, especially with these kinds of readings. So with this, we are looking at about 5%. And of course, right before this question, I took down the banner that is related to this. So we'll pop that back up. And basically what you do is you look for what are kind of the closest in terms of the perfect recombination. And in this case, it's going to be a second great grandparent or a third great grandparent, because 5% is about halfway between. So that's the main thing we're going to be looking for. So with it leaning a bit higher towards the second great grandparent, which is a 6.25% reading, versus third great grandparents, which is a 3.125% reading, we definitely want to make sure we've identified all the second great grandparents. And then we want to make sure we identify all the third great grandparents if we want to be just doubly sure. Because at that point, we are fairly confident that we should find at least one third great grandparent to have a fully Indian ancestry, supposedly. But all of this being said is on the assumption that it's coming from one recent ancestor and not multiple. So it's certainly possible that this person, OP, is related or descends from Indian ancestry through both the mom side and the dad side. And even more, it's possible, it could be that there's distant Indian ancestry through each one of his grandparents, which in that case means instead of one ancestor that you're inheriting 5% from, you're looking at least 4 different ancestors somewhere in your ancestry that you're then inheriting about 1 to 1.25% from. So that's why it's always important to understand that even though we are saying if it's coming from one ancestor, we would expect a third great grandparent. But if you don't find that third great grandparent, it's possible that you may not find that third great grandparent because it's not a third great grandparent who was fully Indian. Now, there's been a lot of different genealogy shows that have traced people with British ancestry who then found out they also had Indian ancestry. I think one of the number one that comes to my mind is Richard Branson. Yeah, Richard Branson. I was like, wait, I'm not saying the wrong person. But yeah, so like Richard Branson found out through, is either Finding Your Roots or Who Do You Think You Are? I can't remember which, that he had Indian ancestry, and then they were able to trace through the paper trail where that Indian ancestry came from, most likely. But I can't remember if they were able to actually identify his Indian ancestor, but I think they were able to identify the most likely like this woman was your most recent Indian ancestor, most likely. It was Who Do You Think You Are? So yeah, and new Finding Your Roots on tonight for everyone that doesn't know. Definitely going to be watching that. Not going to be doing another one of the live chats in Discord that I did last week. I did that last week for the new Roots, Finding Your Roots, and while that was fun, I ended up having to go back and watch the show because I basically missed most of it. So yeah. So okay. So now back to this. So assuming that it is coming from one common ancestor, if it is a second or third great grandparent, that is close enough to have possible genetic matches from that lineage. So what you also want to do is you want to then look at your matches and try to find genetic matches who have a almost or like a very large amount of Indian ancestry. Specifically, if you can find people that are above 90%, that's the best. But obviously, if you can find anyone with over 75% or whatever, and even then, if you do find people that are only 75% Indian, if they have other admixture that does not match up with your European, so let's say they're 75% Indian and then 25% African, it's like, okay, well, it's most likely that Indian side that you're related through. And so what you want to do is by identifying those genetic matches that have a mostly Indian ancestry, see if you can then identify specific areas that they came from, specific families that they are connected through. And that's going to be a way to kind of, even if you can't figure out where this Indian is coming from, at least figure out what some of the story might be as to where in India are you coming from. You are getting Northern Indian, Southern India, but if there's one thing I've heard a lot from people with South Asian ancestry is that it is not very nuanced in most of these DNA tests. And, the few that do try to create nuance, they don't do it very well. So, that's one way to kind of dig into it. But even more, if you do find multiple genetic matches who are of a largely Indian ancestry, and then you can find that they're all coming from the same family. So, maybe the multiple matches that share the same grandparents or great grandparents or whatever. Well, then you have a very specific defined family that okay, somehow through that side that those matches share through their shared great grandparent or whoever, that's how they're going to find their relation to you. So then you've got two sides to work on. You have the side of their family tree of knowing, okay, if I build out their family tree, assuming that, you can, because I'm not that well versed in Indian records, so I don't know how easy it is. And from what I've heard, it's not that easy. But if you can build that out, then you might be able to figure out how you're related. And so, it could give you a lot of different clues. So there's definitely a lot that you could possibly find with that. So, they're definitely on the right track. Second great grandparent, third great grandparent. There is always the possibility that it's even further back and it's just, you just randomly happen to have inherited a lot of that DNA. Something else to mention. Did I say? Yeah, here we go. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong thing. I need to go back and get the other. But something else to mention is just that, having other relatives test will be helpful. So, if you can have your parents test or your grandparents test, that would be the best thing, because then obviously whichever side is coming through, you're going to be getting more DNA from that side of the Indian DNA. And as well, if you can get the grandparents to test, you might really be able to figure that out. Now, assuming that, now if it ends up being that it is through both sides or you have multiple relations, okay. Assuming you do have multiple relations, then when you have your parents test, if they both show up with it, then okay, well, now we know something, something different's going on. Now I should say too, at 4% and 1%, we are looking at the fact that these are kind of trace results, but our confidence is much higher with them because we are looking at two population groups that are so different that it'd be very surprising for that to be mixed up, for there to be an error to get Northern Indian and Southern Indian from a European DNA. Now, it is possible, there's all sorts of stuff that happens when coming up with these admixtures where every single step there can be something that screws up and then that causes the final percentages to look weird. So first you have to read the DNA. So there's always a 1% margin of error there. So right off the bat, you're dealing with a 99%, perfect profile. And then you put it through algorithms where for each population group, you have your precision and recall, which gives you an idea of how accurate in a sense each population is. So they have those own errors. So, looking at Northern India and Southern India precision and recall, we would be able to kind of get an idea of, okay, well, what is the precision recall there? But then we can also look at the overarching continental level that it's coming from. And when it's at the continental level, the confidence is high. The precision recall is almost like 99% each way. So because of all of that, because it's mostly European and then this random Indian, it seems, that's adding up to 5%, that definitely makes it so that even though these are kind of trace results, it certainly makes the confidence so high that the fact they're trace results doesn't matter that much. Even if this was only 1 or 2%. Whenever something stands out that seems very odd, now I should also say too, knowing the history of the British colonies in British, rule in India, it definitely makes sense. And we know that it's probably going to be through English ancestry. So knowing that you come from Western and Central Ontario settlers, so you're probably in Canada, then if you're looking at your family ancestry and you've got, some lines that are Irish and some lines that are English, well, based on historical context, more than likely that Indian is going to be through that one of those English lines. Now I should say that throw a caveat in of, I don't know how involved, Irish people were with, the colonies and things like that. So it's not something to rule out necessarily, but just kind of something to note of, if there's certain families where there's a more higher likelihood they were somehow involved in India, then that's a clue. So hopefully that answers a lot of the questions. I think I tagged this, didn't I? Did I tag this? I did tag it. Cool. So, all right. So we got through some really good questions today. And, this, I think it really worked out doing the top from the past year because we didn't run into like just a nonstop flow of different versions of, well, why did I get this percentage of this? We did get some of that, but it was stuff on the level of, well, here's when it's actually important. Oof, I need to make sure I drink water. All right. So that's definitely going to be the last question I'll answer from Reddit today. I'm going to go through chat. Let's see. Would you ever lead people on a genealogy trip to Europe? That's something I've considered, especially seeing a lot of what Chris has been doing with vlogging through history. He's been doing a lot of those trips. Granted, he already, he does a lot of battlefield stuff and he's already he's worked in that field of being a tour guide and stuff. But it's definitely something I've considered. I know that there's the genealogy cruise, which I don't know if that's happening again, but I remember that happened and I wanted to go, but I couldn't. But that's certainly a possibility. That's something I'll have to consider and see how I can make that happen. So let's see. Do Ancestry DNA's range estimates incorporate the precision and recall calculations for each region? Well, so the precision and recall is basically just a statistical analysis of how well each population group performed. So with precision, and I always need to bring up a thing to help me with this because it's just so hard to describe without having a visual for precision and recall. So here we go. Okay, so we'll use this article. Share screen. There we go. Okay. So here we're looking precision and recall, and basically what we're looking at is two different ways of calculating the accuracy of each population group. So precision is true positives over the actual results. So basically what it is how many true positives did we get out of the total positives? So our true positives plus our false positives. So what that means is, like, okay, let's say in terms of determining Indian ancestry, out of everybody that they give Indian ancestry to, if there's a 99% precision reading, that means that out of everyone they gave that Indian reading to, 99% of them were truly of Indian ancestry, and 1% of them they had no Indian ancestry. So that's saying that, if you do a DNA test and you're expecting to get Indian ancestry, then you're going to gosh, it's always so hard to put it. But basically, if you're expecting Indian ancestry, there's a higher likelihood that you will get that Indian ancestry. So if you don't get it, it's going to be odd. Whereas, okay, recall, true positive over true positive plus false negative. So basically what they're saying is, out of all of the positives that should have happened, how many actually happened? So a false negative means that it was told negative, that it didn't have it, but that's false. So it should have been positive. So basically, in the same context, let's say for Indian ancestry, recall is 80%. So that means for 80% of the people that are getting that reading, 20% of the people that should be expecting that reading are not getting it. So hopefully that makes sense. But basically what they're doing is that they're just plugging their results through this. So they have, a whole testing group of people, they do the results, and then the people that they get Indian ancestry, they take a look, okay, how many people should we have gotten Indian ancestry from? Okay, how many people did we actually get that Indian ancestry from? And then, yeah, so that's what it is. So it's not necessarily that they're really incorporating it as much as it's kind of just a guide for how accurate is each population group. Okay, let's go through some more. I'm going to close that window. Let's see. What I mean is, when Ancestry DNA says they think they are 2% from some region, but it could range from 0 to 7%, for example. I've never looked into that, but I imagine that is part of what plays into it, is the precision and recall of, okay, well, we're getting this percentage, but based on precision and recall, there is a range. So that could be, if that's what you're asking, maybe that is how they do come up with it. But I've never really looked into that, of where, how they calculate the ranges exactly if they're using the precision and recall. With Ancestry seeming to paywall shared matches in the future, is there any way to bulk download the data, or would I have to individually screenshot each match right now to save the data? I think there is a way to bulk download your Ancestry matches is in like a CSV file. And I think they actually have it available through Ancestry, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure that there are tools out there, like AI tools and stuff, where you can kind of scrape it. But I don't know 100% sure. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Getting all these messages, have a package getting delivered right now. So yeah, I don't know. It's, I will say it is a little worrisome seeing them roll out new tools and then putting it behind a paywall, because there's so many things that the genealogy community has been asking for from Ancestry. Chromosome browser. So yeah, but it's worrisome, because it's like, well, does that mean that every time from now on, if there's new update or new tools, are they going to paywall it? And I don't know. So, I haven't done it yet, but I'm planning to buy the Ancestry Plus membership and probably do a video about, what do I think? Because I think a lot of people are wondering, is it worth it? And, if it's anything like 23andMe Plus, it probably isn't. And that's probably the package I'm working on. So Charlie did say, please join the Discord if you haven't already. There is the link. Definitely join the Discord. It's a lot of fun. loving the Discord. It's been awesome. So definitely join. Yeah, lots of send those dog emojis in the chat for the woofy boys in the back. That's what I like to call them, the woofy boys. All right, let's see. Yeah, all right. Okay, cool. All right. So that's gonna be it for today. As everyone probably noticed, this is not on Friday. This is on Tuesday. And from now on, if you didn't catch it last week, I will be doing 2 streams a week. I'll be doing one on the reaction channel, which will be these answering the questions. And I'll be doing one on the main channel, which will largely be tracing family trees of celebrities and historical figures and such. So, hoping that this will increase. If you are enjoying things, definitely, let me know. Be sure to post questions on Reddit. And of course, as you go through Reddit, any questions you want me to answer that you see that either you have the same question or you think it'd be a great question to answer on stream, upvote it, because like I just did, we're going to be looking mostly through the upvotes. So appreciate everybody sticking with me through the stream. I know we're cutting it a little bit early. Hey, map of Los Angeles, Maven caught it. I've had this on 3 streams and I don't think anybody's said it yet. So yeah, map of Los Angeles. And from what I saw, I think this map is from 1987, which is the year of my birth. So that's why I chose it. So, yep, 2 live streams a week. Didn't mean to click on that, but we'll keep it up. Shared matches are the only real tool that Ancestry gives us. So putting it behind a paywall really sucks. There is a manual copy and paste into a Google Sheets that you turn copy into a spreadsheet. Wait, I have to look into it. I didn't realize that they were going to put shared matches behind the paywall. I thought they were going to put the new tool behind it. So I need to look into that. Yeah, this is not fun. Not fun having that. So, but yeah, surprised me to see a live stream today. Pleasantly surprised. Was just looking for something to watch. Thank you. My pleasure. So, hopefully I'll see everybody on Friday. It looks like we're going to be doing Michael J. Fox's family tree. I know that there were a lot of people really worried that it was going to be Jeffrey Epstein, but don't you worry. It's going to be Michael J. Fox. We're still going to have in the poll for next week, we're going to have Jeffrey Epstein, Mark Cuban, and who was the other person I had in it? Why can't I think of it? Why can't I think of them? But we're going to have the other 3, and then we'll have a new person instead of Michael J. Fox. So I think that's what I'm going to do every week. So I don't know. I'll kind of cycle people out. The main thing right now is I'm focusing on finding trending celebs, trending historical figures. So things like that. So, all right. Thank you very much, everybody. You have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'm sure I'll be watching Finding Your Roots along with so many of you. So have a good day.